Welcome, friends. Infamous crimes involving twins, chilling cases of sibling criminal bonds. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are diving into some of the most shocking cases where twins were involved in criminal activities, ranging from murders to elaborate deceptions that left investigators puzzled for years. These stories are not only disturbing but also raise questions about the unique psychological connection that twins share, sometimes leading them down dark and dangerous paths, whether as accomplices, rivals, or even scapegoats for each other, showcasing how an unbreakable bond can sometimes turn into a sinister partnership in crime. Vincent and Marcus Stanford. The murder of Stephanie Scott. In April 2015, an unassuming school cleaner named Vincent Stanford, who worked at Leeton High School in Australia, committed a horrific crime when he kidnapped, assaulted, and murdered 26-year-old teacher Stephanie Scott just days before her wedding, an act of brutality that shocked the community. But what made this case even more disturbing was the involvement of his identical twin, Marcus Stanford, who, though living in a different state at the time, was later found guilty as an accessory to the crime because he accepted and attempted to sell two of Stephanie's belongings that Vincent had sent to him, demonstrating the eerie ways in which twins, even when separated by distance, can become entangled in criminal actions, whether through direct participation or unwitting complicity. Robert and Stephen Spahalski. A life of violence in parallel crimes. Robert and Stephen Spahalski, identical twins born in New York, led eerily parallel lives, both engaging in acts of extreme violence, with Stephen committing his first known murder in 1971 when he killed a store owner during a robbery, while Robert's criminal tendencies took a darker turn when he became a serial killer, murdering at least 4 people between 1989 and 1995. But what set this case apart was that Robert ultimately turned himself in and confessed to the police in 2006, an unexpected move that led to his conviction. Yet, despite their separate paths, the brothers' mirrored criminal behaviors have fascinated criminologists who continue to study how twins can share a propensity for crime even when raised under different circumstances. Orlando and Brandon Nembhard. A crime without a conviction. One of the most perplexing cases involving twins took place in 2011 in Arizona when a young man named Xavier Brooks was fatally shot outside a nightclub, and police quickly arrested Orlando Nembhard as the primary suspect. But the case took a bizarre turn when his defense attorneys pointed out that he had an identical twin brother, Brandon, who was also present that night, making it nearly impossible for witnesses to correctly identify which brother had fired the fatal shot. And with no definitive forensic evidence, no weapon recovered, and eyewitness accounts conflicting due to the striking similarity between the twins, the prosecution had no choice but to drop the charges, resulting in one of the rare cases where a suspect may have walked free solely because of the confusion created by identical siblings, Kevin and Karl Dugar. A decades-long prison sentence overturned by a shocking confession. For nearly 2 decades, Kevin Dugar sat behind bars for a fatal shooting that occurred in 2003 in Chicago, proclaiming his innocence and claiming that the wrong twin had been convicted, a plea that fell on deaf ears until, in 2016, his identical brother, Karl Dugar, shockingly confessed in a letter that he had actually committed the crime, a revelation that took years to be accepted in court, as the justice system was reluctant to overturn the original conviction. But after numerous legal battles and a re-examination of the case, Kevin was finally released in 2022, marking one of the most extraordinary twin-related, wrongful convictions in modern history, where the psychological and ethical dilemmas of identical twins led to a life-altering mistake that only years of persistence could correct. Ronnie and Reggie Kray. The infamous gangster twins who ruled London's underworld. Perhaps the most infamous twins in criminal history, Ronnie and Reggie Kray, rose to power in 1950s and 1960s London, establishing themselves as ruthless gangsters who ran the notorious criminal organization known as The Firm, a group involved in extortion, racketeering, arson, and cold-blooded murder. And despite their outwardly charming personas, their violent tendencies made them some of the most feared criminals in the city, as they orchestrated numerous violent attacks including the high-profile killings of rival gangsters, George Cornell and Jack McVitie. But their reign of terror came to an end in 1969 when both were finally arrested and sentenced to life in prison, a fate that cemented their legacy as two of the most dangerous twin criminals the world has ever known, proving that even the strongest familial bonds cannot always prevent justice from prevailing.